The nice thing about Wikipedia is you can find almost always something to edit or participate in that matches your interest.
Why should businesses care about Wikipedia and what can they do about it? Because this whole verified source of truth or alleged source of truth out there.
Be able to put whatever they would like to be put on there about their company. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as easily as people would like it to.
This is the Scale Your Business with Data podcast with Graeme Crawford of Crawford Macmillan. You're now listening to the only podcast that is designed from the ground up to bring you insights and stories from real data experts. You'll learn how to use the power of data to take your business to the next level with Graeme and his guests. They're also going to show you how the data is often the gold hidden in plain sight and how it will unblock the road to growth ahead. With the clarity of vision and inspiring leadership of change, your business should be able to make multi-million-dollar decisions in minutes, not months. So let's get started. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Welcome back to A Scale Your Business with Data, the podcast. So today, I'm very excited to welcome a friend of mine, Josh Greene, who is the CEO and founder of The Mother Group, a digital marketing agency that specializes in online reputation management, SEO, and Wikipedia strategy. Josh has got over 2 decades of experience working with Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 1000 companies, nonprofits, media channels, just about everyone. And Josh has become, over in that time, a leading voice in helping businesses strategically manage their digital footprint. He's the author of the incredible book, Wikipedia for Business 2025. Get your copy today. And regularly shares insights on how companies can leverage online information to build authority in an increasingly AI-driven landscape. So surprise, surprise, AI is on the agenda again today. Josh, it's great to have you here to discuss how business owners can turn their digital data into a strategic advantage. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Graeme.
Great to be here. I've seen and admired your stuff for a long time, Josh, so it's great to be having this conversation with you and being able to share it with you. So I have been lucky to be educated you over the years in terms of Wikipedia and just how important it is for people's online reputation and just how important it is as a data source and one of the internet's biggest and most reliable data sources. Can you help fill in the rest of the crew who are listening on just why Wikipedia is so critical for businesses?
Yeah, it plays just an absolutely huge role in defining businesses and high-profile individuals online, not just because Wikipedia itself is one of the top 10 most visited sites online and very trusted, but also it is the source of a lot of information that other sites use. And we're seeing quite a bit, and I'm sure we'll talk about it today. It is now playing a huge role in powering all the large language models that are behind the different AI engines that are out there. So you're seeing, I think, even more reliance on Wikipedia as there's a shortage of trusted content for these large language models. Wikipedia has, to its credit, managed to endure over 20 years. So it's gotten woven into the fabric of sort of the online information that's out there. So it plays a huge role at the moment.
And what is it about Wikipedia? Like, what's unique about Wikipedia that makes it so valuable as a trusted source, not only in the past, but in the present and the future as well?
Well, I think a large element is just the human-curated nature of it. You're not relying on algorithms, and there's a system that Wikipedia has put in place that at the very least is transparent and also has a lot of safeguards built into it. So people have sort of come to know that, to validate that. That's really useful at the moment because it's become a trusted source of information. That's why you'll often see fights about it, is because it is a trusted source of information. So people care a lot about what it's saying about things.
It's the first party, genuine, high authority experience, right? Like that's why people are valuing it. And I guess in a world of AI, there's more and more generated content out there that actually human curated content is. You can understand why that's increasing in value and that its stock is rising. Tell me a bit more about Wikipedia editors. Like, who's doing this? Who are these humans in the loop on Wikipedia, and like, what's life like for one of them?
Well, I mean, there's always been the stereotypical someone in their basement editing Wikipedia, but what it really is people who are interested in a particular topic enough so that they're willing to volunteer their time to edit and try and make sure there's accurate information out there. So that can be the nice thing about Wikipedia is you can find almost always something to edit or participate in that matches your interests. For example, I got involved in Wikipedia because I was very interested in track and field, and thought I would, go out and correct something on the internet, which worked out as well as you would expect. But that's how I got my start, and how I think a lot of people got their start. So you have people editing all sorts of different areas of interest. And the nice thing is it's a fairly transparent process. So you can learn how to do it and participate if you want to. There's no central authority that you have to, go through in order to become an editor. You can jump right in, hopefully after some training, and become involved in the editing of Wikipedia. Now, there are, a million different rules that you need to follow, but there's a good onboarding process if that's something you want to get involved in. So, and like anything, there are lots of different motivations for people to get involved in editing, and those can vary, as you might expect.
What was the track and field thing you were trying to correct? Were you trying to make sure your high school honors were appropriately represented online?
I don't think I ever did quite well enough to have a Wikipedia page devoted to that, but was a big fan of track and field here in Northern Virginia, and was just trying to update some information that, like, I had actually been to track meets. So I was like, this information needs to be updated. And I think, like many people, I saw an edit button and thought it would be relatively simple. And of course, it turned out to be considerably more complicated than that.
No, what happened? Was it just a hard interface, or did you put the wrong thing or say it the wrong way? Like, what went wrong?
The interface isn't that bad, and it's certainly improved a lot in the last decade or two. It was more they're just rules about what sources are actually valid on Wikipedia. And I think your initial reaction is, I know something is demonstrably inaccurate, so I ought to just be able to fix it. But there's some very specific rules about what counts as an actual source that can be used for information. That can really be jarring the first time people run into that, where there's something they know has happened, and trying to figure out how to actually get the Wikipedia community to accept it can be pretty challenging.
I share your passion for things being correct on the internet. Absolutely right. Even if I don't share your energy for going in and actually correcting it myself, as you say, I'm sure the process is, there are some unique rules and nuances to navigate. And in fact, there's a couple of things that you think you've mentioned to me before, that if, say, you had a slightly more successful high school track career and you were going to go in and there was a Wikipedia page, like, you couldn't edit your own page, right?
Yeah, that's one of the rules, is you're not supposed to edit those things. And obviously that can cause a lot of confusion when people first get involved, because, your general thought would be you should be the most accurate source of information about yourself, but Wikipedia doesn't approach it that way. They're approaching it like an encyclopedia, where everything needs to be verified.
And then the same is true for businesses, right? So if you have a business and your business has a Wikipedia page, then the rules are that you can't edit it. So you can. So that leads on really nicely to my next question of, like, why should businesses care about Wikipedia, and what can they do about it? Because this whole verified source of truth, or alleged source of truth out there, it may be wrong, maybe not. In places it might not highlight the things that the business owner would want to necessarily highlight. Why should business owners care about Wikipedia, and what can they do about it if they don't like what's on there?
For a lot of the reasons we've just been discussing, because it's treated as a trusted source of truth. So oftentimes what people assume, that whatever Wikipedia has to say about you is in fact accurate. And, because it's an encyclopedia, oftentimes they'll not have been updated information. Your company may have changed, markets, products, things like that. So when that's powering such a large amount of information online, you definitely want to make sure it's accurate and up to date. The challenge is that, there are a lot of rules about that, but there are also rules in how you can suggest changes or propose changes on Wikipedia. Every Wikipedia page has a talk page. So much like individual editors have to focus on what the rules are in their area, a company oftentimes needs to find out a little bit of what the rules actually are. Again, in much the same way that I got involved, the fact there's an edit button on every page can change the dialogue quite a bit, where companies, think that there's an edit button, so they should be able to put whatever they would like to be put on there about their company. Unfortunately, it doesn't work as easily as people would like it to. And that's a long system of checks and balances that have been put in place by Wikipedia that generally works pretty well. But when you're new to it, it's frustrating that you can't just update the information that you want to update.
Yeah, you are not the business is not the customer of Wikipedia, right? And that's that neutrality and central source of authority, first party authority, is what makes it valuable, right? And the domain authority is what, 99, 98, something like that for Wikipedia. So it's a really trusted source by Google in terms of like search engine rankings. So likely, if a page exists, it's going to appear pretty high on your search results.
It will, yes. So
definitely something that business should be interested in, and something I'm sure the Mother Group can help people with as well. So I'll put the plug in there so you don't have to. Let's talk a little bit about Google search results, because I've seen those change in the last 6 months to a year. We'll park AI for now and get back to AI, but Google search results themselves, I've seen across a variety of topics, a number of websites appearing higher up in the search rankings, including Wikipedia, but also Quora and Reddit as well. Like, why are we seeing this phenomenon from Google?
What you're seeing from Google is trying to get more accurate user-generated content into the search results. There was a complaint for a while that you were just seeing a lot of corporate information. So what seems to have happened is Google tweaked their algorithms to try and surface more first-party content. And that's sort of swung back and forward a few different ways. But people have definitely been seeing a lot more Reddit and Quora content than they were a year ago, almost to the point that there's become sort of this running joke about seeing a Reddit thread from 5 or 10 years ago on a particular topic.
I've seen them.
Yeah, which may not be terribly useful, but it is in fact, human generated. So I think we're going to continue to keep seeing Google try and figure that out. There's definitely a big inflection point happening with what people are looking for from Google and how Google is trying to present it. So that's definitely one of those things that's, I think, a little bit jarring if you've been used to Google working a certain way for a long time. And now a lot of that is changing, especially if you're not involved all day, every day in the AI or search world, sort of trying to figure out what happened to your old Google results. I think is jarring given the amount of change that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, they've gone to the pages of internet history, and Google seems to be tweaking its algorithm more often than it used to as well, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the case, and it's also, I think, a lot more noticeable than it might have been in the past. But you're definitely seeing a lot of changes happening, and Google has seemed to indicate a willingness to accept more volatility in the rankings than it used to. So that's the pace of change that people are seeing is also, I think, increasing as well.
Is there an arbitrage opportunity out there right now? Because we spoke about how well defended Wikipedia's truth is, and the tens of thousands of humans who devote their time to doing that. The opposite of that is true on Reddit and Quora, where basically anyone can get a throwaway ID and post anything about any topic that they have no actual expertise or authority on there. Is there, for a small plucky company who can't afford an agency, is there an opportunity on there to insert themselves into conversations on Reddit or Quora? I'm aware of some defense on Reddit, and I've been coached myself that if as soon as you try and sell something on a subreddit, you'll get kicked off and banned unless you do it in a really subtle way. But is there an opportunity out there for companies or for individuals looking to boost their online reputation with those platforms?
I do think Reddit is because it's sort of human run and it has so many subreddits and moderators. It does a fairly good job of filtering out a lot of self-serving promotion. But what we are seeing is a lot of tactics to sort of game the results that AI engines are showing up. And that's really the equivalent of a lot of the SEO tricks that might have worked a decade ago and promptly got stomped out are definitely getting resurrected for some of the newer AI search engines, and I suspect they will get stomped out there as well. But they're definitely sort of speed running the learning curve on what to do with some SEO tactics that people haven't been able to use for Google for a long time. So you're seeing, sometimes the stereotypical, invisible text thing might actually work on a ChatGPT-esque system. I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's fairly obvious, but it does certainly.
So what is the invisible text thing? Is that where you put text in white on a page?
Yeah, it's sort of the white on white text that humans can't read it, but machines pick it up and will index it. I'm sure that's not going to work forever, but there are certainly, as a lot of the newer engines that are out there sort of go with the move fast and break things mantra. You don't have, I would say, some arbitrage opportunities come up. In many ways, just like learning how to use any new tool that's out there first is a lot more advantageous than it is to be last in line.
Yeah, I've heard stories of companies using AI to game the system with AI and mass creating blog posts, like 10, 20,000 blog posts or whatever, in order to rank on either search or the LLMs. The company blowing up on some subscription-based model or whatever, or some low-value e-commerce thing, but then being killed in the next Google update and the whole company disappears. The domain gets flagged as spam and then suddenly it's game over, right?
It's sort of building your house on a really, really sandy foundation. A lot of those stories that I see also go along with someone selling you a course or a tool on how to do that exact thing. So there are definitely going to be stories like that. But trying to build a business on it is tough because you never know when it could get vaporized.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't know that even with legit content. So content that you're doing just to game a system is, I'm sure some people are successful at it, and there are probably just as many, if not many more stories of people who, spun up 10,000 pages of slop and didn't get any result from it, which, it seems more likely at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's the more common thing. So, overall, would you say the best strategy is to stick to the principles that, at least for search, that Google puts out there of expertise, experience, authority, and trust? Like those are the pillars to stick to.
I mean, in general, Google has lost, I think, a lot of credibility about what works and what doesn't. But just in terms of running a business, if you're putting out content based on those principles, it's stuff that you can share across not just Google, but LinkedIn, a variety of other platforms. So I think putting out content that is, going to be genuinely useful for your audience is always a good way to go, because that's going to be useful, powerful, can get repurposed. If you're doing something just to try and rank on one particular engine, that's a lot of work, and there's no guarantee you'll get any results out of it.
This may be the cobbler's children have no shoes question, but like, how do you plan your content strategy for the Mather Group in terms of like expanding knowledge and awareness of your business and position in search results and all of those good things? Have you got any gems that you can share?
Well, I think a lot of what we're thinking about and creating is content or tools that'll be useful for clients or potential clients, and a lot of that goes into our blog, where we're trying to post when we have something to say, or our newsletter, where we're trying to share useful information. I think when you're focused on sort of helping a community, that opens up opportunities. And you need to think about where the ecosystem of people might find you or be aware of you is. It's very unlikely that someone's going to search engine consultant Virginia and then call us. And probably similar people aren't going AI data experts and then calling someone. They're probably looking for a referral or someone they know on LinkedIn. So I think that's one of the challenges is it's easy to get locked up on, here's what we need to do for SEO, but that's changing a lot. And you really need to think about what your end goals are when you're putting together content.
Yeah, we go hunting for moose in the forest, not on the beaches.
That is an excellent way to put it. Yeah,
indeed. Yeah, and you're totally right. Turning it back around to me, like marketing attribution is increasingly more difficult in this multi-touch user journey that more and more people are going on before making internet purchases these days. But one thing I can say for sure is that my channel of organic SEO leading to cold outreach straight from my website appearing in search results is a very round number, a big fat zero. So yeah, it's about knowing the type of business you're in and the customers. And I think we both operate in trust-based businesses that require, establishing that reputation. I think we've held AI and LLM search off long enough. I've seen multiple adverts, 10,000s of blog posts about specific AI SEO agencies who claim we will get you ranked on the LLMs in 1 week, in 2 weeks, whatever it might be. Like, is that a real business for folks now? And whether it is or isn't, like, how would somebody go about doing that if their sole objective was ranking on the LLMs?
It's definitely a business in that some people will pay for that. And there certainly seems to be no shortage of people willing to sell options for that. It sort of goes to to what end or what is it worth? But if say your goal was solely how do I get a better appearing result or how do I show up for something on an LLMs, there is certainly some technical things you can do. The LLMs love sort of schema-based stuff where you're essentially telling them, here is a thing, here is all the properties of the thing, and oftentimes written in the form of triplets, like Josh has a bike, which is blue.
Right.
Those sorts of things tend to resonate. It's a little bit challenging and similar to a lot of traditional search engine optimization, which is how much do you want to write for an actual audience and how much do you want to write for a robot or a spider coming through your content. But the main advice sort of boils down to be very, very clear about what it is you're talking about and how you're trying to define things, and make sure you're consistent everywhere you're showing up. So you want to be, Graeme data expert. You don't want to be Graeme with a different description on LinkedIn and Twitter and everywhere else you're showing up.
Right.
There's that consistency, and then there's that definition. If you're really trying to own a particular corner or definition within some of the LLMs. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of the existing SEO tools that are out there are trying to adapt and show everyone that they can still be valuable. So, your SEMrush, your Moz, your Ahrefs are all starting to incorporate AI measuring tools in there. And you're starting to see here's what you can do about AI coming out. And a lot of that is here's content you might not have, or here's a gap relative to other people who are showing up. So a lot of it right now is sort of looking at your competitors and trying to figure out what they're doing and where they're showing up well and where they're not showing up well. So it starts to sound very much like SEO has sounded for the last 10 years. The challenge is they're now, 5 or 6 different places you care about the AI results versus for a long time it was just how are you showing up in Google.
Yeah, there may be some antitrust fans who see that as a good thing rather than a bad thing. Makes life as an agency a little more complicated, I'm sure. In terms of data sources, Are the LLMs pulling from the same place as Google, but processing it differently? Or do you suspect they're using data sources slightly differently in terms of how they arrive at what they rank?
I think at the moment they're sort of using them differently in that there seems to have been we're going to ingest absolutely everything we're capable of, regardless of where it came from, and frankly, regardless of some of the legality of it, and figure out the copyright details later. So I think some of it is they may just have a broader amount of material to draw from on some areas. So that has some sort of unknown effects. And then there's just the nature of they're sort of customizing to each visitor. So I think you're having a little more variability even than you're used to seeing in Google searches, in that, if you and I are doing different searches or doing the same search, we may be getting very different results based on what the LLM thinks it knows about us. So I think that's, there's always been sort of this where I am geographically maybe is impacting the results, or maybe there's some other things that are impacting the results. But I don't think anyone knows how that's going to shake out when an LLM sort of feels like it, to the extent it's thinking, feels like it knows you. How is that going to change the results, and how is it going to change what shows up? That's certainly going to be really interesting.
If I'm out there and I'm a curious business owner and I'm relatively new to the world of AI and LLMs, like what are some prompts or some questions that I might say log into GPT and ask to establish, like, okay, where am I starting from?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is similar to doing a brand search on Google in terms of what does GPT know about me. So start on searching yourself, and then usually there's, I would say, one or two competitors most business owners are really aware of and sort of compare themselves to, and probably know what that marketing looks like. If you're running an HVAC company, you know who your competitors are, you know how they show up. You probably have a pretty good feel for where they're advertising. You can do the same thing in ChatGPT, find out what it knows, and then sort of do your normal searches. Who's an expert on air conditioning in Northern Virginia? Who's an expert on data intelligence in Northern Virginia? Or go very niche. Who knows how to, do X universally, or who puts out the best content? So I think, and what I've recommended to a lot of clients is, a lot of people feel like this needs to be completely transformational to their business and their workflow, and sort of get overwhelmed by it in terms of, well, I also have to run that HVAC business the rest of the time.
The small matter of that, yeah.
And usually what I tell people is pick a tool that you're just going to use, ask ChatGPT a question, use Whisperflow to do some voice dictation, and just see what it sparks. Because if you're in there and messing around, you'll ask questions, you'll get ideas by being curious about it. Most people aren't going to be just sort of ripping up their entire back-end system, to try and do something new. But they certainly could get some ideas about, here's some interesting ways to use things. And that often, prompts some ideas or some campaigns as you get started. So that's always, I think, a good starting point versus, I had coffee with someone just the other day, and she really felt like she needed to do a course or something to get the hang of it. And it really was, you don't need to get a course. You're not going to become an engineer. You just need to try some of this stuff in the context of what your normal workflow is.
Yeah. Realizing, the one tip I always give people on AI is realize that it's not Google and you need to interact with it differently. I like to be glass half full rather than glass half empty, right? And people are always concerned about, once you put something in GPT, that's it gets sucked into its brain, and then that information is now going to be used whichever way. Like, can you use that to your advantage? If you ask GPT about your company, for example, and it says, I have no idea what that is, can you tell it, and that then becomes like part of its knowledge or memory? Do you think that works?
It does, but it's a question of how much. Like, if you're talking to ChatGPT and it updates that information just for you, that probably helps you have a nice conversation with it, but it doesn't necessarily do anything for your business. If you're publishing it somewhere where it grabs it, absolutely. I think there's a lot of different ways to get information in there. And it depends, like, is this core to your business, or how much benefit would you gain from it? And I think it's interesting, a lot of people who are sort of in that mode of, I need to fix AI, probably are not all that aware of what just their general SEO is, which is driving a lot more traffic. So, I wouldn't worry too much about training AI as much as I would figuring out how you can use it to be beneficial in your workflow. And maybe it's just like you have a fairly smart intern that's helping you out. Might be one way to view it. It's sort of figuring out the mental construct that makes sense in your business, unless you want to just stop and start a brand new business based on AI, which is a whole nother conversation, I'm sure.
You wouldn't be the only person out there doing that, I'm sure. If that was the one, like, it almost brings us back to one of the places that we started at, right? You can tell AI or anything you like about yourself or your business, but presumably it will apply some grains of salt to it because you're telling it that yourself. Is there, like, do you think there's value in a shift? Because Google seems to value it more, because the LLMs value it more, and human beings value it more. Like, Wikipedia is, in effect, stuff other people are saying about you. Testimonials are stuff other people are saying about you. Reddit and Quora, stuff other people are saying about you. Like, is there a shift happening where it's now? It was always important what other people said about your business or said about you independently. Is that becoming more important now in this world where it's far easier to just feed the internet eons and tomes and volumes of stuff about how great you are yourself?
Well, I mean, it sort of boils down to, in a traditional sense, how much marketing do you want to do about yourself? And that's sort of what this boils down to. And some of it is in some ways just a function of how much time do you have to devote to essentially what is marketing yourself. In general, I think, sure, if you can seed the internet with a lot of things saying how great you are, that would be beneficial. But the amount of time it would take and energy to do that, could you spend that time doing great work? Could you spend that time doing, thought leadership? Could you spend that time doing marketing? You a lot of times have to ask yourself, is whatever potential juice there worth the squeeze?
Yeah,
the right answer. And the answer is going to be different for everyone. But I think a lot of times, if you're a business owner, you're looking for, or the idea of there being a magic bullet is certainly appealing. Like, I'm gonna tell AI how great I am, and that's going to lead to lots and lots of wonderful business outcomes. Certainly sounds better than I'm going to have to go do 10 trade shows to get the word out.
That leads me back to an interesting paradox that I'm sure you come across regularly, right? So you help both companies and individuals manage their reputation. And as we've, covered at length so far, changing search rankings, changing LLMs, whatever it might be, takes time and focus and quality to do so. But I imagine you get some people who first engage you when the hair's already on fire, the stable door's already open and the horse is out in the field. And they're dealing with a live reputation issue. How do you balance the fact that it takes a while to fix those things when you're dealing with people who are understandably feeling urgency?
There are a lot of different techniques depending on the situation. And one of the, interesting things is oftentimes there are a lot of sort of more traditional tools depending on the situation. A lot of times we work with clients where traditional press is really going to be important in whatever situation they're dealing with. If you've just, been on the front page of a bunch of newspapers, you can have all the online strategy in the world you want, but that's going to dominate the conversation. And sometimes it's a question of, if this is an existential thing, you also need to be doing press or sort of appearing in the same places that showed up. So there can be a tipping point where, there's a lot to do, and it's not just optimizing, it's actually creating. And that can be really important if you're, in a crisis situation. Oftentimes you have to be proactive in terms of figuring out what you can do to deal with that situation.
And do your clients get surprised when they find out that there isn't necessarily a magic bullet for these things?
I would say probably not, mostly because most clients are sort of reactive in terms of they have a crisis going on, and that sort of shifts the thinking. I think if you ask them before the crisis, probably, but once you're sort of in it, you tend to realize all the different things that are going on. And I think that's one of the challenges oftentimes is when you're in a reactive mode, you can end up playing whack-a-mole, because now you are dealing with press and TV and Reddit and Google, and it becomes a very long list if you're trying to deal with it in a lot of places.
Yeah, the number of data sources that you need to adjust or fix or whatever it might be explodes, and suddenly you've got this huge ecosystem. I've got a good question and the right way question and the wrong way question for you. So what are some good proactive things that companies and or individuals can do to identify vulnerabilities in their reputation or identify ways to better manage their reputation before it becomes a crisis?
I think keeping an inventory of all the places that you show up online and what it says and what it looks like, even if that's just screenshots in a spreadsheet, is really valuable. This often gets overlooked, but just literally who's in charge of what, and even just who has the passwords to different things.
Right.
You would be surprised the number of times that big companies are suddenly trying to track down a Gmail address, which could just be someone with the best of intentions, set up their Instagram account a decade ago and no one's really had any issues with it until now. But then you're suddenly trying to track down this one person who controls a major asset for a Fortune 2000 company. So running a simulation is always a good idea, even if it's just sitting down and saying, what would we do if X would happen? And following it through can be really, really useful to figure out where some of those holes are. It's a lot easier to fix them when you're not staring down a deadline with a reporter or something.
Oh, absolutely. And then on the flip side of it, once the crisis kicks in and the hair is on fire, what are some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they don't have the right assistance that lead to issues for them?
I'd say a lot of it sort of falls into I can solve it myself. If I just put out a statement, or I talk to the reporter, or I, update our blog, oftentimes there are a lot of considerations that go into that. And so unless you're the CEO of the company who essentially has total autonomy to decide what they're going to do, oftentimes it's sort of counterintuitive, but taking a deep breath and thinking through the situation a little bit can be really important.
Cool. I want to get some recommendations from you before you go, because you sound like a very accomplished user of different tools out there. You mentioned Whisperflow, you mentioned GPT. Like, what's some of your favorite lesser-known tools or lesser-known ways to use GPT that you'd like to share with folks?
Well, I think Whisperflow has been fun lately just because they seem to do a really good job of figuring out how to capture voice and turn it into something useful. We've been playing around with Avatarify, which is basically a kid sort of animating things, animating people talking, but is really thought-provoking when you play around with it, just in terms of what the implications might be. I know it sounds really basic, but just using actual tools, I enjoy using Perplexity. I use most of the major engines, so much so that we've had to have an intervention about how many we subscribe to. But I think just trying them out, trying different things can be really helpful.
Same. That software subscriptions line item at the end of the month always raises some questions on my end as well. For sure. And I've seen Whisperflow myself. I've been tempted to use it because I use Google Docs voice typing, and it's the lack of accuracy I find frustrating and troubling sometimes. And I've only played with the free version of Whisper, and it seemed to do a lot better job of not only getting the words correct, but also the formatting seemed to flow a lot more nicely with the periods and the paragraphs and the exclamation marks and the other things like that. So yeah, I'll definitely. You might have just added another $10 onto my line item with that little tip. So before you head off, Josh, it's been so fantastic to have you on today and sharing all this wonderful insight about one of the world's most trusted and wonderful data sources in Wikipedia and all the ramifications off of that. For people who want to learn more about managing the reputation, about Wikipedia, about SEO, about reputation management, and all the other great things that you and the Mather Group do, where are the best places to find you?
Usually you can just go to our website, www.themathergroupllc.com, and all the socials that go along with it, as well as you can find me and the company on LinkedIn, and always happy to chat with anyone who wants to talk about any of this.
Fabulous. Well, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for joining us, and see you next time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
All the best.
Thanks for tuning in to Scale Your Business with Data. If today's conversation gave you even one insight, one aha moment, or one new idea to take action on, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who's ready to level up. Until next time, keep asking the right questions, keep challenging the status quo, and keep scaling with data.